Hey, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to the One True Divine Feminine and Psychic Investigations Tarot. I send love and light and angelic vibes out across the universe. Great gratitude to everybody who has been helping me all over. I'll never know all the hands unseen who have assisted me in this process, and yet how very grateful I am. And I appreciate the updates too, and the soul upliftment. Australia, you've made a huge difference in my life, helping me to remember my own humanity, not to become the monsters that I saw in my living room, right? Which would be really easy to do at certain points along this journey. And yet I don't want to become that. So you've helped me more than you could know and reminding me who I am. And we all have to be reminded occasionally that we're all souls on a journey, right? We're all learning. So, anyhow, welcome here today. I don't really have any homemade cards, but I did hear something the other day that I was like, I don't know what that's about. And it had to do with closed adoptions, a whole bunch of closed adoptions. And I don't know anything about that. So, if that has the appearance of having something to do with me, that's another fraud, just so you know, because I don't know anything about that. The only child I have at home is a furry cat named Carmel, and she's the only one I want. All right, today we're going to jump right into our last part of the Neptune series, which is Neptune low vibing in the first house. And of course, we know that Neptune on a high vibe is how we connect to God, right? Also our creativity. But on a low vibe in the first house, it has a completely different feel. And again, so much of everything in life, as we know, has to do with free will. So when we talk about the first house, not only is that all about our body and how it is affected, but also how the outward world perceives us. The first house equates to the rising sign in an astrology chart. So, whatever astrological symbol rides on the cusp of this house becomes the mask that we wear out into the world. And this is really strong. Like you can have a sun sign and that can be very potent, but I'll be honest, a lot of people wear their rising sign right on their shirt sleeve, and it is what you will recognize them as most strongly. So, because it has so much to do with that outward identity. Now, in a high vibe, Neptune in the first house could equate to a very loving, kind, giving Mother Nature or Mother Teresa kind of nature. But on a low vibe, you could find yourself feeling lost as to who you really are. And if that's so, then truly part of your life journey on this go around is to figure out your true self. Now, for some, this will equate to realizing that we are a soul having a human experience. Yet we drive around in this little vehicle that we have. I call it the equivalent of a Vega or maybe a Toyota pickup truck. It's basically just a disposable body, right? So, how do we learn to honor the vehicle, which is a very first house matter, while still nourishing the soul? That's the realm of Neptune. So, you see how you begin to put things together, right? Now, until a person comes to understand their true identity, they may feel lost at sea, like they're bobbing about in an ocean current. You may try to overly blend your personality to those close to you because Neptune tends to be a very diffuse energy and it has diffuse boundaries. And since you haven't yet figured out who you are, you may attempt overly much to blend your energy with those nearby. Now, if you hook up with a good soul tribe, well, that'll work out okay, right? And then that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you hook up with a soul tribe that's not so good, it can lead you into some very shady places and cause you a whole lot of trouble in your life. For many, you may just feel as if you're living in a dark void, unless, of course, other planets in your chart anchor you in elsewhere while providing much needed support and purpose. Okay. And again, remember, we're just talking about one planet, one sign, not even the conversations that are happening. So this is like the bare bones of what is going on with the astrological readouts. Okay. Um, Following a life path can be difficult, largely because you may lack direction. You might just be like lazing around a little bit too much. At times, you may just have to tread water while you're doing your best to lay down goals and determine what it is you want to show up as in the world. So, learning to love yourself and to trust the universe is an important part of your journey, for you'll need to have faith to navigate through the loneliness and confusion you may be forced to confront at this time. Work at getting your needs met and find a counselor who can help you ground. And as you do that, you will be better able to define who you wish to be. Now, sometimes when Neptune's in the first, circumstances can leave you feel rather victimized. Sort of like somebody who's lost again at sea, or possibly a war-torn victim, somebody who had to escape or flee their country because of war ravaging their homeland. That's one possibility with this symbol. You might also just feel like a loner, a drifter, or someone who floats aimlessly through life. So this is the zombie card, like you're kind of lost. You don't know what to do with yourself. If you're not careful who you draw into your inner circle at this time, you could certainly become victimized by scam artists, fake prophets who fill your head with nonsense, or those who are seeking to be saved. Or you could project onto others that you're the one who's seeking a knight in shining armor to scoop you up and save you from your lack of direction and loneliness, hiding behind the door here. The true goal, of course, is to become stronger in yourself and to have faith that you can be whatever you want to be if you're willing to work for it. Okay. But you have to come out of hiding, right? You have to be able to step out and not be so afraid to face the world. Though we have all have periods of time where we feel weak, where we have the lost night of the soul. The goal with this placement is to trust your spirit to gain wisdom and psychological help. You need to form strong boundaries so you can trust yourself and to stand on your own 2 feet. If you have this placement, I would recommend learning more about the other planets in your chart so you can find the other strengths, right? Especially if this one's low vibing. Because just because you might have one low vibing planet doesn't mean you're going to falter or fail in life. You have all these other support systems there, right? But if you notice you have a weak planet, then you need to start looking around to where else can I gain strength? Where else can I gain wisdom and a path to move forward? Now, for a few people with this placement, it could actually equate to having some very difficult disability that you have to overcome that affects the body. And that in itself could actually become your life's mission. Now, that won't happen for everyone. It'll happen for just a few, right? But these are some of the potentialities. Now, this is kind of fun because when Neptune in the first, this has to me the sense of a spirit starting all over again, as if you were meant to redefine yourself in the world in this go around. So I believe in reincarnation. So maybe you've had many lives and you've run out that pattern of learning, and this is like the new wheel, right? You're here on a great mission. You don't know what it is, but you get to discover the golden path. Okay, so this is going to rely on you learning from the wisdom of the last lives. What lessons did you learn in the past, and what do you need to learn to push forward and grow now? Empathy and compassion can certainly be evident at this time, and so long as you don't over give of yourself, these aren't bad qualities to have, right? Others, however, can take advantage of your kindness if you don't learn to set limits that are healthy for you. And of course, empaths, we have a hard time with that, right? Because we feel everything, which is a blessing and a curse, let me tell you. Connecting to the divine is always a calling wherever Neptune happens to float. So there's going to be a strong tendency to want to connect to the universe with this placement. If you harness it well, you could become a spiritual powerhouse. Um, Choir singers, televangelists, or meditation teachers could all emerge from here. The trick is not to lose yourself completely in these endeavors, for Neptune tends to have no boundaries. In essence, you could give so much of yourself to the world that you feel like there's nothing left to give yourself or those closest to you. But it can be a powerhouse if you harness the energy wisely. The key is to find the support structures that you need, right? So that this is like the strong card of truth and clarity, so that you can go through this developmental stage of your soul and be careful, really careful at this time, not to lean on drugs or alcohol. That's really important if you have a low vibing Neptune. Neptune always makes us desire to return to the feeling of oneness, right? Some people with this placement will bury the loneliness they feel any way they can, even to the point of losing their souls or unaliving themselves. Separation from God or a sense of loneliness can create a feeling of wanting to go home, back to your creator, right? You want to go back to that feeling of total loving, belonging consciousness. And although we all get there in time, during this lifetime, you're meant to dream, to connect with a good soul tribe, and to find your purpose in the world of duality. Okay? So that's the goal with Neptune in the first. And if you know you have a low vibing one, you just have to do what you can to help lift it up. Now, I'm going to do a little more because I know astrology is weird for a lot of people, right? And I run into this all the time where people don't understand. And I've had so many instances where people, oh, that's evil, this, that, and the other. And I can assure you, it's not evil unless you use it for evil purposes, right? It can be a very powerful spiritual tool. So I want to talk a little bit about, why study this magical thing with the stars in the heavens, right? Why bother to do this? Well, I know I have an unusual group of watchers right now. Cops, detectives, various other people. Maybe you don't normally listen to astrology. Some of you know, however, that it can be a tool to really see into a person's soul. You know that it can be used to solve crimes. You know that it can warn you of things that are coming in advance so that you can prepare or plan or try to steer the energy in a positive fashion, right? So, it's all about just not don't tap in if it scares you. That's what I'd say. If you come to this website and it raises fear or alarm or anxiety, and then just don't do it, right? It's not meant to do those things. It's meant to be a really good tool for self-understanding, to understanding your life path, and what your natural skills and talents are, and to understand what is happening in the world, right? And by reading the energy and understanding what is being presented by the universe and the stars, God is giving us an option on how we can respond and harness to that energy if we know that it's happening, right? So this is happening behind us, whether we realize it or not. If you start to pay attention, then you go, oh, wow, that's going on. How can I make that work for the better? And if we use it as that kind of spiritual tool, it can help us to learn and grow in the direction of love and decency and bettering our souls. But it's a choice, and it's a choice that we have to make every day. More than anything, it is meant to be used as self-empowerment, so transformation, right? Improvement, knowledge to help us know thyself better, so that we can make wise choices, get closer to God, and have a happier life, right? And over the years, again, I watched many people and helped them with their charts. And then I watched my own charts with big events coming to see what is unfolding. And, you can't always grab the energy the way you want, but a lot of times you can say, okay, I see that coming. How can I do this better, right? How can I be more loving? How can I be more kind? How can I not let my hurt parts hurt everyone else, right? How can I think as if I were in another person's body, right? You have that opportunity with astrology every day, right? And it's meant to help you grow as a soul and to master the lessons that God set out in the stars. Okay, this is my worldview, right? I think a lot of astrologers are similarly inclined. So we're all given this blueprint at birth, okay? And this is the high priestess, and you can see her starry little matrix behind her. And in my worldview, these birth charts are your spiritual DNA. We each have a chart. Our country has a chart. Every country has a chart. So that path is set in the stars, and you just need to be able to read the symbols and tap into the wisdom to understand what's possible. Now, what I don't feel good about with what's happened lately is people tapping into the wisdom to try to cause harm, right? That's just a completely poor use of a spiritual tool. It's kind of like going to a Buddhist temple and climbing all over the Buddha statue and leaving your boot prints everywhere, or climbing up on a cross or a statue of Christ and, leaving breadcrumbs from your lunch there. It's not meant to be used that way. It's meant to be used to help steer the world in a good direction, as well as yourself, right? And to help people and coach people and to understand what's happening behind us, whether we realize it or not. So, a high priestess. So, God sets out this roadmap for us. And that doesn't mean that everything is destined to be. Just that you are going to encounter certain energies along your way, and that those energies were presented to you in this lifetime for a reason. It is my belief that we're born into an exact hour and minute and time and place so that our life lessons are laid out before us, right? That's why we get the charts that we get. And the purpose of that, in my mind, is so that we can evolve as souls. Again, since I believe in reincarnation and we're always trying to get closer and closer to God, think how imperfect we all are, me included, right? It takes effort and time and work to, improve ourselves. And for my atheist friends, even if you don't believe in a higher deity, then you believe in your own moral code, and you can still just work on improving your own moral code, right? But nothing is set in stone, in my belief. Maybe a few things, but mostly I believe we have a lot of free will to harness the energy and make good or ill will of it. Now, there are occasionally times that I do feel, this is just my belief, that there are certain things that are fated. Yods are one of them, and that's a symbol in astrology, the hand of God. It's like God is pointing to what's going to happen, right? But when you have fated things, it's like God intends things to occur. And I believe this happens because there are simply lessons he means for people to learn on planet Earth, right? And when those things are fated, it doesn't matter how much you try. And I have tried a few times, which, is very hubristic if you think about it. But I tried with a friend's friend to help her avoid a miscarriage I saw coming, and, coached her to just take care of herself, this and that. Well, it was fated, right? So when something is fated to happen, there's basically nothing you can do because there's some soul lesson in that has to be learned. Okay, so there's fate, there's free will, and I also believe there's a little bit of shit happens in there too. Okay, now I've got the Scorpio card because Scorpio is very linked to Pluto, right? The two go hand in hand. And so I want to give you some examples of how you can use this in your life, right? If you've been watching for a while, I did some eclipse readings for this spring, which you really need to pay attention to, right? Because the eclipses were done off of the nation's chart. The energies are very strong. We're going through a tumultuous time, as we know, and the energy's written all over the place. So, and that's why I posted it, right? So now we can be more aware of what's coming and then choose how we want to proceed wisely, right? So, in our nation's chart, we have Pluto in the second house in Capricorn. That's the house of values and earned income. Now, the fact that we're currently experiencing tons of corruption, problems in government, big business, big gas and oil literally killing us to death, pharma that can't take care of people while they make trillions of dollars in profit, banking industry that's out of control and off the wheels. None of this comes as any surprise. This is part of our heritage as Americans, natally. And we came into this turmoil exactly in 1776 with also this kind of corruption with the Tories, right? That's why we overthrew them, right? And that's why we're going through the trouble right now, because we're right back at that end of that Pluto cycle. We're seeing all the same problems, but now we have no one to blame except for ourselves because there's no Tories around. So we're right back there. And yes, we have become corrupt. Things are not working very well. We've had riots, we've had chaos, cheating, all of this stuff. Now, if we get stuck there or dig in where we are with these kinds of things, the lies, the cheating, all of the stuff that my family went through, so an election could be won, we're going to go down a long and dirty road. And instead of transformation, which Scorpio can bring, we're going to sting ourselves in the behind. Okay. But here's the joy and power of astrology if you know the symbology well, because there's always many interpretations for every planet. You just have to dig and get to know what's about. So the other thing that Pluto, especially since it's ruled by Scorpio, has the ability to do in our second house is for us to completely transform our value system, right? So if we really want God to be God, we need to put God at the top of the list, not money. If we want a better education system, we need to, pay teachers well enough to attract good folks. If we value human beings over corporations, then we need to start putting things into the mix where people, once again, matter. We have the ability with this to completely transform where we are. And it took us a long time to get here, right? We didn't always have this seedy underbelly and corrupt look to us. This has happened in my lifetime, that it's changed. And we have the ability with Pluto to rise like a phoenix from the ashes if we harness this Pluto cycle well, right? And I got stuck in this Pluto cycle. We're at the tail end of it. And at the tail end, all of the corruption and greed and big government and the underbelly and seediness is trying to hang on like a death grip, right? And we're at the worst of it because things are working all for the people with the suitcases of money, right? But it's not working very well for the people. And we've seen that and I'm not condoning this at all, but people threatened to tear down a bunch of state houses. They certainly tried to tear down the Capitol. That angst is there. People want transformation. Now, the problem is we want different things. So that's why we have to come together and we have to sit down and we have to work at this consciously. But the seeds that we set in the next couple of years are going to impact us for the next 248. And so that's why with all of the cops bought off and the lawyers bought off and the judges and the file clerks and the this and the that, to the point that it's not even working, that's concerned me. Not as much as, hey, that was coming to me, but it's more like we're off the rails, right? We're completely off the rails and we can't set these seeds for the next 248 years, because otherwise I can't imagine what we would look like, right? So that's just an example of how you can harness it. When you understand what's going on, you can choose to make good decisions to put things into better condition. Now, when we have a new moon eclipse, that is a very powerful event. Sun and moon together, right? And we get several eclipses each year, both lunar and solar. I'm just going to hold up one card. I already made predictions on this spring. We're going to have a very powerful new moon eclipse in the fourth house of our homeland. That's our soil. That's our turf. That's our families. That's our homes. That's our backyards, right? That's our houses. That's how we live behind closed doors. Now, new moons indicate the chance to start all over, to set new seeds, to grow something beautiful. Now, there was a really difficult square attached to that, right? So we're going to be presented with attention, a need to choose to harness the energy wisely. If we don't, it could erupt in violence, mobs, a lot of difficulty from what I saw, right? But if we go, wow, that looks tough, right? Then we could say, how can we harness this energy in a better fashion to create the change we need peacefully in our country so we're not at war with each other, right? Because we're all Americans. We shouldn't be at war with each other. I don't want to be at war with my party. I don't want to be at war with the other party. I don't want war at all. I'm a water rabbit, folks. I like peace, which is why the last few years have been difficult. I really enjoy peace. I don't like drama. I don't like chaos. I know sometimes it has its purpose, but I would prefer to see us evolve peacefully versus carting people around like we did in the revolution, tarring and feathering them, or doing worse things, right? Because we want what we want and we didn't get what we wanted. And so now we're going to do awful things to people and tear things up and smash windows and go hunting lawmakers, right? So we have, again, the opportunity to create change peacefully so that we're not at war. Now, if you bump into a potent, power-laden square like that unconsciously, like you don't know it's happening in the background, turmoil can very easily erupt. But seeing ahead basically tells you, hey, either a volcano is going to go off, or we could use the signs and signals and synchronicities along the way to creatively bleed off the negative tension to create the change we need rather than waiting for things to go ba boom. Okay, so you're beginning to see, why I'm drawn to it, because it's a very powerful tool. So God gives us a lot of power to choose in the now. And if we choose well, we can have an easy path, right? If we don't choose well, we get the big ba-boom and riots and chaos and lynchings and the insanity that we've been seeing happens, and we don't want that, right? But when we go about it consciously, I do think things, some things are ordained because God is trying to lay down various lessons for us. He does this lovingly and kindly, right? Because there are things that humanity needs to learn. So if we harness that energy wisely, but again, if something is fated, there's basically nothing that can shake the hand of God. That's my particular take. Okay. All right. Let's see if I might be off a little on my cards here. Like I said, I'm more of an astrologer. All right. Now I'm going to give you another example here. So say we have a Pluto-Neptune conjunction, and Pluto is almighty and very powerful, and you can just see the power emanating all around this guy's head, right? So I'm just going to give you an example from somebody's chart. Pluto-Neptune conjunction in the 8th house. And we remember now the 8th house is a very powerful mystery house, as well as it deals over life, death, birth, big psychological divides, suicide, other people's money, big events that we face in our lives, chaotic energy, lots of emotions, intimacy, other people's money, taxes, the things that are enough to make you crazy, right, if you don't harness the energy well. And then, we all have to face some of these psychological divides. So when we're confronted with that, because Pluto likes to confront things powerfully, um, God is basically going to force us to look at things. And with Adolf Hitler, that power complex, which had everything to do with Pluto, had everything also to do with his Neptune sitting right next to it, which was his God complex. So he had a lust for power when it comes to his ability to serve up life and death over humanity using his particular belief system, right? And he fortunately was not, well, he killed 6 million people, but he wasn't overall successful because in the eighth house, he ran out of money. The Allies had more money. Now, if you knew, for example, that you had a very chaotic potential in your chart, something like that, that just screams of, whoo, big power complex, God complex, destructive force. If you knew that and you realized, okay, this could have very difficult energies in my life if I don't learn to harness the energy well. Well, if you learn about that early on, you can say, okay, I could go this way or that way. I could see how I could fall into this path and create a deluge in my life and the life of others. Or I could figure out a way to harness this powerful energy to create good in the world. So this gives us, again, that free will to steer our life in a more life affirming path rather than facing these big cataclysmic eighth house issues. Now, again, sometimes we also get kind souls who cross our path who help to nudge us back into alignment when we falter. And again, I thank Australia and many other readers for just helping me to calm down, not get too worked up, and not to become that which happened to me, right? I've had instances of wanting to lash out because of how hard I was hurt, but then that makes me the bad person in the room, right? So we can choose to allow other people to help nudge us, or we can look at the planetary alignments and avoid the deluge, right? Or do your best to, as much as you can. Now, sometimes I do think that we get chaotic energy that and planetary configurations that pop up in family lines over and over again for a reason. And again, because to me, it's the soul. We're on a soul journey. We're just down here in the Vega, right? And the soul's going round and round and round, trying to find perfection so that it can shine more brightly when we get up to heaven. So I know a lot of people don't believe in reincarnation, but for me, that's a lot of opportunities to figure out what we need to learn. It has been shown in charts, sometimes in families, that certain things, configurations, will happen amongst a whole bloodline, right? Now, when that happens throughout a bloodline, God is presenting a lesson very purposefully, right? I truly believe this, so that we can learn about what happened, right? Probably to us as children or maybe even as adults, so we can transform that very chaotic energy, right? And turn it from something that was vile and wicked and harm filled and destructive into something that's more powerful and beautiful and in alignment with our spirits, right? And you could say, wow, why did these things happen? But I think sometimes they happen because sometimes I think in lifetimes we swap roles. So what happened to us in a previous life, well, we experience it maybe in this life. And so that we can learn what it was like from the other person's perspective. And I know this can be extremely difficult, sad, and harsh thing to face, right? But we have an amazing creator, and I don't think he's careless, right? I don't think he makes mistakes, right? So I think gay people are born gay because God's a great creator, right? He creates us all differently so that we can learn to love and grow and be more compassionate and understanding. And everything is done according to his plan. It may look chaotic at times, but there is order in the chaos. And so some of these curses that pop up for a reason. All right. Now, this go around, we've all been facing harsh lessons that we're trying to overcome. We're trying to bring more beauty to some difficult situations, right? So, me too. Um, we all need to get help that we need mentally, physically, spiritually to overcome. Then the opportunity to break the curse is truly presented. Um, uh, doing so helps us to free each one of us up, and it makes it easier for the next reincarnation. Um, I was pretty injured over what happened to me, and I have wanted to lash out harshly and to do unto others what they did to me, to humiliate others publicly for humiliating me, um, and make them feel terrible and bad. But you know what? Again, I'm going to step back and say that just causes more harm, right? I don't want that harm on other people's souls. I think other people are already seeing and feeling what they did. Um, and I, I'm hoping that they will be able to alchemize that themselves, right? Um, so I don't want people publicly shamed. Um, I don't want people to assume that a certain thing happened by one person or another, because there have been dozens of people involved in this case. So don't shun people. Don't assume that somebody did a particular thing when maybe they didn't, because there were so many people involved. And that kind of psychological burden just adds to the torture of what has already occurred, right? So you may see some people leaving positions, etc., but it may be for completely other reasons, right? It may have absolutely nothing to do with some of the more harsh things that occurred. So don't assume, don't shun. If somebody decides to confide in you regarding what happens, and they seek out and say, hey, I need help getting over this great psychological divide, well, then by all means provide the emotional support and well-being that they need. But I'm truly at the point, I do think we need to get rid of people who are causing mental, spiritual, physical harm to others with sex trafficking and pedophilia, and sending nasty pictures to people. I think that has to stop, and I do think people need to be fired for that. It's a horrible abuse of power. I'm not saying anybody in the government did that, but if there were people, then that has to happen. And also, if we want to, begin to evolve, right? Because we're in that Pluto cycle, so it's all about the evolution. Now, where are people picking up these things that they're doing, right? Was it a family curse? Was it, you know, something that we're fostering in our own families? Is it something that we're fostering in our communities by saying, hey, it's okay to put showers in everybody's camera and watch? I had a woman the other day on who's like, yeah, they do this kind of stuff in the Navy all the time. Is it okay for a whole city to watch a family have sex? Are we normalizing things within our work groups, our agencies, our covens? I hate to think of our covens, and secret societies where you're actually teaching really vile things so that you can reach the next level, right, of torture to enact on somebody for some reason. I think we really need to take a solid look at that. What are we teaching in different places that this was an acceptable thing to come out? And it hasn't just happened once, it's happened before, and people are earning money off of it. This has got to stop. Haponopono. We have to find a better way. We have to find a better way. We have to quit teaching this kind of stuff in these buildings, right? That harming another person this way is funny, and oh, you have the body of a porn star and post that on the internet. No, stop teaching that in your secret societies. Stop. It's foul, right? Just stop and reconsider what it is that you're training people to do. Okay. Um, so again, I don't, there was a period of time where I was my yang energy was coming out and I was mad. And it's like, well, you humiliated me. I want you to be humiliated in public. I don't want that. I don't. There's been enough harm done. There's been enough sorrow. There's been enough misery to last lifetimes in this whole thing. But I do want change, right? This shall never happen in a person's home again. This filthy porn for pay TV show, we're in your shower. Are you kidding me? Illegal cameras everywhere and a whole city watching families. I mean, wake up. Okay, we have to wake up because if we want this, we have to quit allowing that, right? Would you want that in your house? Would you want people, doing a pay for porn show in your home? Of course not, right? So we have to stop doing that. Otherwise, we end up with chaos when what we really want is a ho'oponopono, right? We want forgiveness. We want peace. We want beauty in the matrix, right? So as people, start to face karma, and I am truly sorry for that. Some people are going to get quietly removed from places. Don't assume that it's because of this particular thing, right? And it may not even be happening in government agencies. It could be happening in orphanages, schools, or various other buildings that happen to be involved in this sex trafficking case. But if people do quietly go away, just remember there are hundreds of people involved. And you cannot say one person did this, another person did that. Don't assume, don't shun. I don't want people publicly humiliated. There were so many people involved in this crime, and many of them were not even in your own work circles, right? You don't know who did what. Now, if someone again comes to you and says, hey, I need to unburden my soul, I did this, what's really needed is healing, right? Jail makes the rest of us safe. But if you want to break the curse, when these people go to jail, they need mental and spiritual help. Otherwise, they could come back worse, right? So please just know, and I know a lot of people wanted to reach out. I really don't want to, meet with anybody from the past, but I have already forgiven, right? I may never heal from what happened to me. So I've forgiven, but I want to change. And I'm going to make sure that change happens. And other people are going to help me because we're going to go back and find who's been taking money off of this stuff, right? Buying yachts and buying RVs and three-wheelers while just destroying human lives. And again, to put a pedophile picture in somebody's house, to cost them their house, to reap money off of court cases. This is unacceptable human behavior. And if you're using this to earn money for, your really fun secret society, this is going to stop, right? This is one of the seeds we're going to unplant after you did this to me, right? So no more filthy tactics so that you can level up in a gang, right? So that gets you to level 33 if you can do this level of horror. We need to start thinking about what it is that we're teaching in these societies and help us to find a way to move together where we can find more beauty and peace in the next 248 years. Okay? So I know I have weird followers. And you're learning astrology slowly. It's a very slow practice, but just consider how it's meant to be used. It's meant as a coaching tool. It's meant to help you understand yourself better. If you had a harsh configuration in a particular house, again, now you're seeing, okay, there's a high vibe and a low vibe. Maybe you're born with a tendency for a low vibe because of circumstances. But if you grew up knowing that, you could say, okay, this seed was planted here. How do I overcome that? How do I work on that so that instead of coming out at the low vibe end, I come out with the shining, bright new path, the higher path, right? And that's where the free will is so important. But unless you understand yourself or your chart or what's happening in the nation, you don't know that all of this is going on. And once you do know, then once you really start to see stuff, that's when you really want to begin to warn people, right? Because you know there's potentially some very big things coming March, April, May, right? And it's all about how we choose to approach that. That matters. And again, some things I do think are fated. I think the hand of God weighs heavily on certain things, especially when we're off track down here. And then that is what it is. But mostly, I think we have free will and the ability to understand ourselves better and grow as a soul, and to use astrology to help us to become better human beings, right? It's not meant to throw people off their path. I mean, the only time I would ever use it that way is if I felt somebody really evil were at the helm, and they were lined up, and then I would do just that. And yes, I did do that once, and I would do it all over again if need be, because in my mind, that particular person was a danger. So anyhow, I'll leave it at that. But I hope that helps to understand how it's meant to be used, how you can use it for good, and the fact that it is happening all around us and behind us. We're just not aware of it. But once you're aware of it, then you can say, okay, we need to watch for this. This could happen. Doesn't mean it's gonna, but the potential's there. And especially on those hard squares, we know the energy's chaotic. There's a lot of power behind it. It's very potent, explosive. And we realize that potency and explosiveness that is there for a reason. And in our country, it's there for a reason because we want change, right? January 6th and that kind of stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. People want change, right? And that explosive energy, 2023 is going to have some explosive energies. But the question is, are we wise enough to recognize it? And rather than go through what we've been through for 6 years in my house and the other victims' houses to get what we wanted by doing what we did to cheat to win, can we instead say, okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to work this out together, we're going to put on our thinking caps, we're going to find a way that works for everybody, and we're going to plant good seeds for the next 248 years. And we're going to also work on our own souls, so that where you've made mistakes in your life, you can look inwardly and fix them. Where you can see, I'm having monster tendencies myself, and I don't want to be a monster, right? How do I be kinder? Because I can feel my pain, so that means I can feel somebody else's pain too, right? And I don't want to inflict the horror of what I went through to that same degree on another human being. So we all have to start thinking about that. And, I know there's some judges. I call the one judge the home master judge, who's not happy with me. But why am I planting that seed? Because whatever we plant in the next couple of years is what we get for the next 248. And right now we're having a meltdown in the DOJ, complete meltdown. My whole state helped. The whole state, right? All the way from one to the other. And wow, that's like a complete and utter breakdown, a complete breakdown. So we can't go into the next cycle building on that. So that's my impetus to call out some of the folks. And I think Mary High Priestess Intuition, we're calling out the illegal camera stuff, the filth, the corruption, the greed. We say we want to bring God down to this country, but really it seems like the only thing is the almighty buck, right? And we are losing our souls in search of that. So Pluto in Capricorn, the opportunity to transform our value system, to rise from these ashes wisely in scorpionic fashion, create a better country with win-wins for everybody. Okay, that's the power of astrology, my friends. God bless. Thank you for helping me to remind me who I am and to be kinder, right? Just because I've been hurt, I don't need to hurt others, and neither do any of you. So don't assume who's doing what or has done what. You don't know. There have been hundreds of people involved in this case, and everybody's got a different finger in the pie. Now, do I feel also very adamant about stopping what's going on with the nasty picture setup thing and the trafficking thing? Oh, we're in your house. Now we can do anything we want. Oh, yeah, I feel very committed, right? I have been filthatized by this process, literally filthatized. And if this happened in your home, well, you wouldn't have done much better, I don't think. And yeah, did it almost drive me crazy? Yeah, right. It's a Nazi torture tactic. Don't do it anymore. You can listen, you can learn what you need. If there's some rare instance where you have to watch something, be mindful, right? You don't need to be in people's showers. You don't need to be watching them have sex and filming it and selling it. Come on, people, right? We have to return our country to decency. That's where we are. And I am also just going to put out a big feeling of compassion for those who are getting caught up for the trafficking. I am so very sorry. I know how painful it is on your soul. I don't want any additional suffering other than, yes, you do need to be charged with it, but take the time that you have to then heal what happened to you, get the help you need, and heal your soul, okay? So that the next go round is so much easier, right? And if you start to think of life as a merry-go-round where you come and go and come and go and come and go, and you're just learning on the way, then just take the time to heal your lives, right? Me too. It's going to be a continual thing, but I forgive. That's my message, and I don't want people humiliated or othered or shunned or whatever. And you don't know who did what. There were dozens, if not 100 people involved in this. So don't make any assumptions. Just don't, right? We don't need any more harm. Okay, God bless. Take care. Hope you're enjoying the astrology lessons.